Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Let's Crack Real Math. My name is Viraaj and in this video we'll be having a look at speed, distance and time. So before I begin the video, please make sure to perform an LSS, that is like, share and subscribe. And without further ado, let's begin. So this video is the first video in the playlist of the spin-off playlists. In the spin-off playlist I will be explaining math topics that are usually covered in other subjects. For example, this topic speed, distance and time is covered more vastly in physics rather than math. So over the course of the next few weeks and months I will be uploading videos on the spin-off playlist, which will include mathematical topics from other subjects like physics, chemistry, maybe even geography. So before I dive into examples, let's get a basic knowledge on speed, distance and time. The one fundamental formula you need to know is that speed is equal to distance over time. Distance over time. Now, one of the most complicated problems is when you need to change units. The standard unit, or the SI unit, if you are a physics student, you would know what an SI unit is. That is the standard international unit. We know that distance is meters and time is seconds. And if distance is meters and time is seconds, we know that speed is meters per second. However, the question can specify you to find the speed in another sort of form, maybe kilometer per hour or meters per hour. It can all be specified in the question, but if it's not specified and the units are given in the SI units, then obviously you would use this formula as it is. Another key formula you need to know is that average speed is equal to the total distance traveled or covered divided by the total time taken or spent. Again, the units, SI units, meter, second and meter per second. So now you may be wondering what exactly is the difference between the two. The first formula, that is speed is distance over time, is mainly used for one-dimensional speed, distance, time questions. Average speed is when it's more than one-dimensional, meaning it's a course of events. For example, I walk 10 meters for 10 seconds, and then I ride a bicycle for 2 hours and cover 3 kilometers. So and then they could ask me for the time or the speed in both of those events individually, and then they would ask me for the average speed, that is the whole journey as a whole. So I would add up all the distance that's covered and the total time taken. So that's basically the difference between the two. So let's look at the first example we have, because this is an example oriented topic. The more examples you do, the more comfortable you'll eventually become. So the first example here, it says light travels a distance of 6 times 10 to the power of 9 meters in 20 seconds. Okay, good to know. Calculate the speed of light in meters per second. Right, we know our formula is speed, that's S equals to distance over time. We have our distance, that's 6 times 10 to the power of 9 meters. We have our time, which is 20 seconds. It told us to find it in meters per second, so the meters is here, the seconds is here, no conversion needed as of now. And all we have to do is calculate the speed, which is this. So substituting the necessary information, we know that this would now be speed is equal to 6 times 10 to the power of 9 all over 20, because 20 is the second and 6 times 10 to the power of 9 is the distance. If you do not want to write 6 times 10 to the power of 9, you can put this in your calculator, and then whatever value you then get, you can write that as a whole, but that would cost a lot of time, and in examination time is essential, so you can't waste time. You need to write it in shorter formats. That's why I would prefer it if you could write it like this, only if you're comfortable with it. So then speed is simply 6 times 10 to the power of 9 divided by 20, and doing that I am getting 3 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0, or this can be written as 3.0 times 10 to the power of 8 meters per second. Just confirm. 1 2 3 4 5 6. Yep. And if you are a physics student, you would know that that is 3.0 times 10 to the power of 8 is the speed of light. So that's another advantage you would have if you're a physics student. You would automatically know that this is the correct answer, or that the answer that you're meant to get would be somewhere near that. On to the next example. Right, this one says a train travels 24,000 meters in 40 minutes. Okay, good to know. It says find the speed of the train in kilometer per hour. Speed is distance over time, which in this case is distance we have is 24,000 meters, and time taken is 40 minutes. Told me to find the speed of the train in kilometer per hour. Now if I were to do this calculation, I would eventually get the speed, yes, but in meters per minute, and I want it in kilometers per hour. So the best way going about this question is to individually convert the terms to the necessary unit required. So they want me to have the distance over here in kilometers. So converting 24,000 meters to kilometer, you know that you would do 24,000 divided by 1,000, and we know 24,000 divided by 1,000 is 24 km, kilometers, km. All of that divided by the 40 minutes, but written in terms of hours. We know that an hour has 60 minutes, so this will simply be 40 over 60, and if you simplify this, you know you would get something like 2 over 3. It's 24 kilometers divided by 2/3 of an hour. And doing this in your calculator, 24 divided by 2 over 3, you should get 36 kilometer per hour. Always remember to write your units in your final answer, very crucial. And that is the answer for that question. The best way to go about this is to simply convert the individual terms to the required unit. For example, if it was asking it in kilometers per second, I would have then converted the 40 minutes to seconds rather than hours, and we know that 40 minutes to seconds would simply be 40 times 60. That's 2,400. So on to the next question. Right, this one says an aircraft travels at 1,200 km per hour for 2 hours, and then 1,500 km per hour for 4 hours. Part A wants us to calculate the total distance traveled. Now there is quite a bit of information here, so let's slowly take it all in at first. Right, so it says that it eventually travels at 1,200 km per hour for 2 hours, and then 1,500 km per hour for 4 hours. Calculate the total distance traveled. We know that speed is distance over time, and if we are to get distance, all we do is make d the subject of the formula. If you are not comfortable with making terms the subject of the formula, you can watch my video on making x the subject of the formula in any equation. In this case, we're making d the subject. So making d the subject, we know that d is simply st, which is speed times time. And it wants us to find the total distance traveled. And to find the total distance traveled, we need to find the distance covered between this information, the distance covered in this information and the distance covered in this information, and then add them up together. So using this first part, the 1200 km per hour in 2 hours, we know that distance is speed times time, which is here. Our speed is 1200 times the time, which in this case is 2000, sorry, not 2002, sorry, 2. And doing this, d should be 2400, and this would be in kilometer per hour. Sorry, kilometers, not kilometer per hour, because if you do kilometer per hour times hour, these two would cancel out, you'll be left with kilometers. So for the first piece of information, the distance traveled is 2400 kilometers. Now for the second part, again we know d is equal to speed times time. Speed in this part is 1500 and time is 4 hours, and doing this should be 6000. 6,000 kilometers in this part. So now that we have the two different amounts of distances covered for the different speed and different amount of time for that aircraft, all we have to do is add the both distances up together, because it said calculate the total distance traveled. So 6,000 plus 2,400, and that should give you 8,400. Sorry, not 84,000, 8,400 kilometers. And that is the final answer for the A part of that question. The total distance covered is 8,400 kilometers. On to the B part, it says calculate the average speed for the whole journey. As stated earlier, average speed is total distance, total d, over total t. Okay, sorry guys, just a little Microsoft whiteboard technical difficulty. As I was saying, average speed is total d, that's distance, total d, over total t, that's total time taken. The total t, total distance covered was the question that was the thing they wanted us to find out in the A part, which we eventually got as 8,400. Now the question arises, what is total t? If you pay attention to the question, the answer is in the question. It says an aircraft travels at 1,200 km per hour for 2 hours, okay, 2 hours, and then 1,500 km per hour for 4 hours. If you see, it travels 2 hours first and then 4 hours, and together it means it traveled 6 hours. So the total time taken was simply 6 hours. So substituting the information, we have 8,400 divided by 6, this in kilometers and this in hours. And then doing this, you should get 1,400. Let me just confirm that with the calculator. Yep, 1,400 kilometer per hour. And the question didn't specify the unit, but we can say it's kilometer per hour because that's the units that they have used for the speed in the question. If they did wanted us to write in a different unit, they would have specified in the B part of the question. So on to the final example for this video, and this is a challenge question. Challenge question. So please do pause the video and have a go at this by yourself, and then resume the video to see if you are correct or incorrect. If you are incorrect, please take note of your mistake. Right, so what does this question say? It says other T drives at a speed of X kilometers per hour for 1 hour. Okay, good to know. She then drives at a speed of X plus 20 km per hour for the next 2 hours. Okay, good to know. The total distance traveled is 280 kilometers. Calculate the value of x. Right, this one looks a bit complicated, but let's dissect the question. First things first, it's a total distance traveled. Our total d is 280 kilometers. Now, since the total d is 280 kilometers, we now need to see the other part of the information. It says Aditi drives at a speed of x kilometers per hour for 1 hour. So using our formula, speed equals distance over time, if I were to substitute the values from this first part of the question, I would have something like x equals to d over 1. It may look confusing, but this is what I did. I simply took the speed they gave me, that is x, put it over here. The d, I just represented it as the distance, and I took the 1 hour and put it over here. So I have x equals to d over 1. If I did the very same for the other part of the information, that's at a speed of x plus 20 kilometers per hour for the next 2 hours, I would have x plus 20 equals to d over 2, because the time over here they gave us 2 and the speed was x plus 20. Now you can see I have two unknowns. I don't know distance, or in this case, and I don't know x. I know the total distance is 280 kilometers. That means the distance that's over here in this question, in this part, and the distance over here in this part, if I were to add them all up together, I would get 280. Now the question is, how do I add up these equations? What I can do, or the most logical thing to do, is make d the subject of the formula in both of these equations that I've created. If I were to make d the subject in this equation over here, in this one, then all I have to do is cross multiply. I know that d is x. If I were to make the d the subject of the formula over here, I know this would be d equals to 2x plus 40, because 2 times x is 2x and 2 times 20 is 40. Now that I have my d of this equation and my d of this equation, like I said before, if I were to add them both together, I should get 280. And now that I have a value for both these d, for this d the value is x, for this d the value is 2x plus 40, all I can simply do is x plus 2x plus 40 equals 280. All I did is I made d the subject in both of these formulas. Whatever that was equal to, added up both the representations of d, which was x and 2x plus 40. And I know that if I added them all up together, I would get 280, because it's specified in the question that the total distance traveled is 280 kilometers. Now that I have an equation, all I have to do is use algebra and solve it for x. X plus 2x, 3x plus 40 equals 280. Take 40 to the other side. That would be 280 minus 40. This would be 3x equals to 240, and x is 240 divided by 3, which is 80. If I'm not wrong, let me just quickly check that in a calculator. 240 divided by 3. Yep, it's 80. And we can confirm that. Let's confirm that in both of the formulas. If x is 80, the first part of the formula, the first formula I made should be 80 equals to d over 1. And if I were to solve for d, this would be d is 80. And if I were to do this for the other part of the formula, that's x plus 20 equals to d over 2. So 80 plus 20 equals to d over 2. 80 plus 20 is 100. Times 2, that's 200 equals to d. And then I have my 2d's, 80 and 200. If I would add them up together, I should get 280, and 200 plus 80 is indeed 280. And that was the total distance traveled. Hence, the answer to this question is correct. So that brings us to the end of this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Please do not forget to perform an LSS, that is like, share and subscribe. And thanks for watching, guys. Have a nice one.